Welcome back to Only Talk Sports. So we talk sports every single day, or at least we try to. I'm Ernest Jeffrey. Subscribe to the channel if you like sports content. Hit that notification bell so you never miss our video. We have another big matchup in the Big 12 involving the Kansas Jayhawks on Big Monday on ESPN, and that's with the Jayhawks this week traveling to the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Last Big Monday, Kansas went on the road to Kansas State, and I did predict Kansas to win that game, and they fell short on the road to their arch rivals in the K-State Wildcats. Do I believe this week that Kansas can go on the road and get a huge win in the Big 12 over the Texas Tech Red Raiders to stay toward the top of the Big 12 standings? Or do I believe that Kansas will fall on the road for the second straight time on Big Monday and that Texas Tech will get a huge home win over the Jayhawks? Now, both these teams, they are struggling a bit right now, not because of their play, but stuff that is happening off the court. Texas Tech, they've had a flu bug that's been going on around the team, and that's caused the Red Raiders to be losing a few of their last games. Because when you look at how Texas Tech had been playing, they were on a big roll in the Big 12, but then they lost to TCU, Cincinnati, and Baylor, and they were very competitive in all three of those games, but they couldn't get it done because you could definitely tell that the flu was impacting them in their last couple performances. Even their head coach, Grant McCasland, was sick as well, but he was fighting through it. But I will say, Grant McCasland deserves a lot of credit for what he has been doing at Texas Tech. With the adversity that the Red Raiders suffered after Mark Adams resigned last season at head coach, people did not know where Texas Tech was going to be headed. It looked like possibly they would be going in the wrong direction after Chris Beard left and then Mark Adams resigned, and then you had a bunch of players leave the program like Fardall's AMAC transferring, Jalen Tyson, Kevin O'Banner graduated, and a whole other bunch of guys that left the program. But then Grant McCasland came in and he was able to make the Texas Tech roster still competitive. And when you look at the Big 12 standings, they are right there. Despite the 3-game losing streak that Texas Tech suffered, they are only a game and a half back of the Houston Cougars for the Big 12 lead. So if they are able to beat Kansas, they will still have a shot to win the Big 12 conference. Nobody was expecting that. And I think Texas Tech is one of the most underrated teams in college basketball that not many people are talking about. They're playing great basketball, but because they just had this mini 3-game losing streak, they've kind of fallen out of discussion. But they did just recently beat the UCF Knights. And when you look at Kansas, they've also had a couple of slip-ups as well, losing at Iowa State and at Kansas State, but they were just able to knock off Baylor at home. And Kansas is only favored at a 50.6% chance to win to Texas Tech's 49.4%. But remember when I said both teams are going through adversity right now? It's not just Texas Tech, because Kansas, Kevin McCullough did not play in the game against Baylor, and Kansas was still able to win that game. And according to Bill Self, it does not look like Kevin McCullough will be able to play against the Red Raiders. And if he's not able to play, that's going to make this a lot harder for Kansas to win, because being able to win at Fog Allen Fieldhouse over Baylor without Kevin McCullough was very impressive, but trying to replicate that on the road at Texas Tech without him is going to be a lot harder. Now, it's not a 100% given that he won't play, but it did not seem positive from the update Bill Self gave. And then DeJuan Harris got hurt in the Baylor game as well. So if DeJuan Harris can't play, that's really going to mess up the Jayhawks, because then that's going to force other guys that aren't used to handling the basketball as much and having to run the team. They're going to have to get Hunter Dickinson and KJ Adams some looks, and that's going to make it a lot tougher in a road environment at Texas Tech. That is one of the most underrated environments in college basketball, especially when you got a team like Kansas coming to town. But when you look at the Kansas Jayhawks roster overall, we know how talented it is. But as you can see, Kevin McCullough averaging 19.5 points per game. That's how much you are losing if Kevin McCullough can't play, plus his 6 rebounds and 5 assists, and his free throw shooting and 3-point shooting that are superb. And then if you don't have DeJuan Harris, who's averaging 7 points per game and 7 assists, that will be tough as well. Granted, DeJuan Harris, it's more likely he does play, because even though he did miss some time in the Baylor game, he did re-enter the game toward the end, but he was clearly hobbled and not 100%. He was just able to hold on and help Kansas get the win at home. But other guys like Johnny Furphy, Elmarco Jackson, and Nicholas Timberlake, they're going to have to step up if DeJuan Harris is not able to go, and more than likely with Kevin McCullough not being able to go. We know Hunter Dickinson is going to get a double-double more than likely, because the one thing Texas Tech does struggle at on their roster is they do not have a lot of guys in the front court that I think can slow down Hunter Dickinson. And Grant McCasland did a fantastic job bringing in talent to this roster through the transfer portal to help Texas Tech be competitive this year after Mark Adams' resignation. All those guys left. Joe Toussaint being added, that was a huge addition for the Red Raiders. He's averaging 13 points per game and 4 assists, by far having his best season in college basketball. Pop Issacs is having a career year, averaging 17 points per game and 4 assists. Also, Grant McCasland brought in Warren Washington from Nevada and Arizona State, who's averaging 10 points per game and 7 boards, and Chance McMillan's averaging 10.5 points per game. Darian Williams also is averaging 9 points per game. Kerwin Walton, the North Carolina transfer, is averaging 8 points per game as well. But Devin Cambridge, the transfer from Arizona State, averaging 10.5 points per game and 5 boards. He's been out for almost the entirety of this season, and he would have been one of the best options to try to limit Hunter Dickinson at all whatsoever, which is very tough to do. And since he can't play, that's going to really strain Texas Tech's front court to try to be able to slow down Dickinson. But if DeJuan Harris and Kevin McCullough can't play, that's also going to make it where even if Hunter Dickinson does get his points, Texas Tech's guards are very capable of playing defense, and they might be able to shut down Elmarco Jackson, Nick Timberlake, and Johnny Furphy as well. Because when you look at the points per game for both of these teams, they are very similar on what they are giving up to their opponent. Kansas is scoring 79 points per game to their opponent 68, and Texas Tech is scoring 77 points per game to their opponent 69. And their other numbers are very similar as well. Kansas just has a small advantage in rebounds, blocks, and steals, but the assists is where Kansas shines. But again, if DeJuan Harris can't play, or if he is able to play and he's not 100%, those assist numbers might go down for the Kansas Jayhawks. And when you look at the recent history for both of these teams, Texas Tech has lost 8 of the last 9 matchups to the Kansas Jayhawks. Their last win over the Kansas Jayhawks was in 2022 at home with a 75-67 win. That was a great game for Texas Tech, but other than that, they have struggled to knock off the Kansas Jayhawks, even though they've been very competitive in the last couple of matchups against Kansas. And when you look at the bracket matrix, Kansas is a 2 seed, whereas Texas Tech is a 7 seed. So the Red Raiders are not in danger of missing the NCAA tournament right now, but he went over Kansas would easily solidify their spot as a team that should be making the NCAA tournament, while Kansas is definitely safe. But who do I believe is going to win this massive matchup in the Big 12 on Big Monday? Texas Tech is a team that has been playing very good basketball this season, like I said, going well under the radar nationally, and Grant McCasland deserves a ton of credit for assembling this roster. They've got a talented team. Joe Toussaint is very improved. Pop Issacs is performing like one of the better players in the Big 12. And Texas Tech and Devin Cambridge, this team might be even better than they currently are right now, because then they would be able to slow down teams' bigs a little bit more. But even as is, Texas Tech's front court is solid enough, just very thin, but their back court is what shines. And it doesn't really look like the flu is going to be an issue for Texas Tech anymore. It looks like that might be out of their system soon. Grant McCasland was able to coach easily in the game against UCF, and the Red Raiders looked a little bit better in that game compared to the way that they played the last couple of games before that, where they were not able to win. Texas Tech has only lost 1 game at home all season, and Kansas, even though they are a great team this year, with the injuries that they have to Kevin McCullough, who looks like he's not going to be able to play, DeJuan Harris is very questionable, I believe that the Texas Tech Red Raiders will knock off the Kansas Jayhawks 75-74 for the Kansas Jayhawks to lose their 2nd straight road game on Big Monday, and to help keep Texas Tech in the Big 12 title standings. But this should be a fantastic matchup. I believe it's going to go down to the wire. If Texas Tech and Devin Cambridge, I believe that the Red Raiders could win by a little bit more, and especially if they did not have the flu that went through the program for a little while, maybe that they would have their legs under them a bit more, and they might have had a chance to win this game by close to 10 points, in my opinion. But with the Kansas Jayhawks not having Kevin McCullough and DeJuan Harris being very uncertain, I think if Kansas was fully healthy, there's a good shot that they would have been able to go on the road and knock off Texas Tech. But again, the Red Raiders are a tough environment. It is very hard to win there. Grant McCasland has done a great job in his first season as the Red Raiders head coach, keeping the team together with the roster of guys that decided to stay at Texas Tech and the newcomers that they brought through the transfer portal. Kansas is a fantastic team, like always under Bill Self, but they're going through some issues right now with injuries, and I think especially it's going to be tough for the Kansas backcourt with how well Texas Tech's guards are playing, and I believe Texas Tech will find a way to squeak out a close win over the Kansas Jayhawks on Big Monday. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below about whether you think that Kansas will be able to fight through the injury issues, and whether DeJuan Harris or Kevin McCullough or whoever's available for Kansas Kansas, they can go on the road and knock off the Texas Tech Red Raiders on Big Monday, or whether you believe that the Red Raiders, getting over the flu issues and even without Devin Cameron, that they will be able to knock off the Kansas Jayhawks to stay in the Big 12 title race and get their best win of the season. Subscribe to the channel if you like sports content. Like this video down below. Follow me on Twitter as well. Link is in the description, and I'll see you next time.